Night fell over Seoul, as if someone had flipped a switch in the sky. The rain had stopped not long ago, so the ground still shone, full of puddles reflecting blue and red neon lights, like paint mixed with blood spread over the asphalt. Jun Lee walked alone down the narrow street, hands stuffed into the pockets of his black coat, head slightly lowered. The city made its usual noise, there's cars, horns, people laughing, music leaking out of some bar. But little by little, all of that seemed to drift away, as if someone was slowly turning down the volume of the world. Seoul never sleeps, and neither does my hunger, he thinks. And no, it's not hunger for food. Out of nowhere, he stops. It's not because he sees something, it's because he feels it. The air changes. A cold wind passes through the alley beside him and brings a smell he knows all too well. The smell of iron, strong, warm. It's not an old, forgotten smell. It's the smell of fresh blood. He closes his eyes for a moment and pulls the air in slowly. Beneath the smell of wet trash, asphalt and smoke, there's something much sharper, blood. And along with it, another sound starts to rise, as if it were coming from inside his head. Tock, 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 drops falling somewhere. And mixed with that, a heartbeat, not his, someone else's, fast, desperate. Jun turns his head toward the entrance of the alley. Inside, there is almost no light. Only a faint glow from a distant neon sign paints the shadows a dirty red. The floor looks stained, as if something had been dragged along it. His right hand slowly comes out of his pocket. His fingers tremble a little. When he looks toward the sign, his dark eyes catch a faint red gleam, so quick any human would swear it was just their imagination. I promised I wouldn't do this again, he thinks, feeling his chest tighten. No more hunting, no more human blood. Not today, not after everything. He takes a step back. All he has to do is turn and keep walking down the main street where there are people, lights, normal life. He could pretend he didn't feel anything. He could let someone else deal with it. Let the police find it, let an ambulance arrive too late. All he had to do was keep going and stay being the weird guy at the university. Then he hears it. Please, don't. The voice is weak, broken, almost swallowed by the damp alley walls. But to him, it sounds like someone just screamed right in his ear. The wounded heart speeds up even more. Jun looks toward the bright avenue. A couple walks by sharing an umbrella, laughing at some silly joke. A group leaves a cafe, talking loudly. Someone runs to catch a bus. Everything there looks so normal. When he looks back at the alley, all he sees is darkness, piles of trash, old boxes, a broken street lamp. A dark puddle slowly crawls toward the drain, as if the street were bleeding little by little. The smell of blood almost drowns out every other smell. The veins in Jun's hand bulge when he clenches his fist tightly. Without asking permission, a memory crashes into his mind. Snow falling slowly, far too white to match the bright red spread over the ground. Someone on their knees, hands open, covered in blood, trying to hold on to what couldn't be held anymore. Jun himself, younger, breathing fast, his chin stained red, staring in horror at what he had just done. The image disappears as quickly as it came, leaving only a bitter taste in his mouth. Have you ever felt like doing exactly the thing you swore you would never do again? He asks, not even sure if he's talking to himself or to someone who isn't there. For a few seconds, he's stuck between the bright, busy street and the shadow-drowned alley. Going in means getting close again to the most dangerous part of himself. Not going in means turning his back on someone who might be dying alone, just a few meters away. Now think about it seriously. If you were in his place, would you walk into that alley to try to save someone, knowing it could turn you into a monster again? Or would you pretend you didn't hear anything and keep walking as if it wasn't your problem? Jun's feet answer before his head does. For a moment they turn toward the bright avenue, but at the last second they change direction. The first step into the alley echoes louder than it should. The second is already swallowed by the darkness. The streetlights behind him feel farther away with every step. The deeper he goes, the stronger the smell of blood becomes. The sound of the injured heart is now almost the only sound that exists. You can hear heavy breathing, something dragging along the ground. Maybe a body, maybe a tired foot trying to run away. Jun feels his fangs pressing against his gums, eager to come out. He clenches his jaw, breathes in deeply through his nose, and parts his lips just enough to let the air out. In a puddle of water mixed with blood near a torn garbage bag, his reflection appears, trembling. For 1 second, the fangs are there, sharp and clear. He turns his face away immediately, as if he can't stand seeing himself like that. A sharp sound cuts through the air, something hitting the wall. Maybe someone being thrown, maybe an object falling. After that, silence. That night, he thinks, feeling a strange weight in his chest, as if his dead heart were trying to beat. I broke a promise, but it wasn't the only one I was going to break. As the darkness swallows Jun completely, the city keeps shining outside, with no idea what is waking up inside some random alley in Seoul. Morning in Seoul felt like a bad joke compared to the night before. The sky was that lazy shade of grey. Students were crossing campus with coffee in hand, complaining about exams, laughing loud, glued to their phones as if nothing strange could ever happen in a crowded place like that. Soo-yeon was almost running up the university stairs, hugging her notebooks, backpack slipping off one shoulder. Her sneakers, still a bit damp from the rain, made an annoying little sound with every step. She knew she was late. Again. And she knew that particular professor seemed to have been born just to hate late students. She stopped for a second in front of the classroom door, took a deep breath, tried to fix her hair with one hand and thought, just go in and act like it's normal. Her heart was racing, but not only because of the scolding that might be coming. It was that strange anxiety, that feeling that shows up out of nowhere, like the day had something different waiting for her. She pushed the door open. The noise in the room dropped instantly. The professor looked over his glasses with that "this again" face. Some students glanced at the clock, others didn't even bother hiding their judgment. Others kept scrolling on their phones like nothing had happened. Soo-yeon bowed quickly, mumbled a rushed "sorry, Professor," and started walking down the aisle between the desks. That's when the universe decided to help, in the worst way possible. One of her notebooks slipped from her arms, clipped the corner of someone's desk and fell to the floor, sending pages flying everywhere. A few low laughs popped up here and there. Someone whispered something she preferred not to catch. The professor rolled his eyes, clearly out of patience. She dropped down fast, trying to gather the pages as quickly as she could, feeling her face heat up. Seriously, Soo-yeon? Today of all days? She thought, biting her lip. It was always like that. The more she wanted to be invisible, the more something went wrong. And then another hand entered the scene, a large hand with long fingers and skin way colder than it should be at that time of the morning. The hand touched the papers at the same time as hers, and their fingers brushed. A chill ran up Soo-yeon's arm, the kind you feel and can't tell if it's fear, cold, or something else. She looked up. The boy crouched beside her had a face that didn't match the rest of the classroom. It wasn't just that he was handsome. He had the kind of face that makes time freeze for half a second. Eyes that were a bit too dark, intense and calm at the same time. Straight black hair, a little messy, falling lightly over his forehead. His skin was very light. Not doesn't go out in the sun much light. Light in a strange way, almost too pale. Sorry, he said, handing her some pages. His voice was low, soft, almost emotionless, like he was used to not drawing attention. Thanks, she replied, trying to flash a quick smile. It came out shy and awkward. As soon as she took the paper, she noticed it again. His hand was cold, not air conditioning cold, freezer cold. I just stepped out of the icebox cold. Are you cold? Udi slipped out before she could stop herself. He took a second to answer, as if the question was strangely hard. I don't really feel cold, he said, looking away for a moment. The professor cleared his throat loudly, reminding everyone that class was still happening. Miss Han, since you've decided to join us, would you please take a seat? He complained. Soo-yeon turned red immediately. Sorry, Professor. she repeated, scooping up the last papers in a hurry. The boy stood up first, leaving an empty desk next to his. It looked natural, but at the same time, calculated. Like he knew she wouldn't dare choose another seat after that embarrassment. She walked over, trying to pretend everything was fine. She sat beside him, still straightening her papers, feeling her heart pounding, and it wasn't because of being late anymore. It was that kind of nervousness that mixes shame and curiosity. For a few seconds, neither of them said anything. The professor went back to the lesson, the projector on, graphs appearing on the screen. Little by little, the room slipped back into normal life, but for her, nothing felt normal. She risked a sideways glance. He was staring at the board, but he seemed far away. His expression was serious, almost sad, like his mind was anywhere else but in that classroom. The light coming through the window hit his face in a strange way. It made his skin look even paler, and the contrast of his eyes even stronger. Without thinking too much, she tried to talk to him in a whisper. "Did you come late too, or did you show up just to save me from total humiliation?" He took a moment to react, like someone had just pulled him out of a deep thought. "I was already here," he replied without looking directly at her. The humiliation was just a bonus. She let out a small laugh, surprised that he'd make such a dry joke out of nowhere. "Then thanks for the bonus," she said. "I'm Soo-yeon." He turned his head and looked at her for a moment. It was a short look, but intense, like he was analyzing every detail. There wasn't that obvious flirty spark, and somehow that made it even stranger. "Jun Lee," he said. She repeated the name in her head a few times, like she was testing it. Jun Lee. It sounded easy, light, but there was something about him that was neither easy nor light. While the professor wrote on the board, Soo-yeon tried to pay attention, but her eyes drifted back to Jun's hands resting on the desk. They were nice hands, strong, and strangely still. He didn't check his phone, didn't doodle in his notebook, didn't bounce his leg. He just sat there, unmoving, like he was stuck in another time. She caught herself staring for too long. When she realized it, she quickly turned her face away. "And you, if you were in Soo-yeon's place, would you have the guts to start talking to a guy like that, handsome, mysterious, a little cold, or would you pretend he doesn't exist just to avoid trouble?" Class went on, but for Soo-yeon, it was like the teacher's voice was coming from far away. The words passed through her head without sticking. Every now and then, she stole another sideways glance. Jun stayed exactly the same, quiet, serious, almost motionless, like he was there and somewhere else at the same time. When the bell rang, the room exploded in the noise of chairs scraping, people standing up, backpacks zipping. Soo-yeon was still putting her things away when she heard a familiar voice approaching too fast. "You almost died today," commented Choi Min-ji, dropping her backpack onto Soo-yeon's desk. "Of embarrassment, I mean." Soo-yeon made a face. "Good morning to you too," she said. Min-ji didn't even try to be subtle. She stared straight at Jun, who was already on his feet, putting his earphones in, ready to leave. She looked him over from head to toe, totally shameless, like she was assessing a suspect. "Is that one new?" she asked, still looking at him. "That's, Jun Lee," Soo-yeon said, trying not to sound too interested. "He helped me with the notebooks." "Oh, so he's an accomplice to your downfall," Min-ji said, folding her arms. "First impression, he looks like trouble." Soo-yeon almost choked. "Min-ji, keep your voice down," she hissed, glancing around. "Relax." He'd already left their row. He walked toward the door, calm steps, not looking at anyone. Even so, it felt like the air in the room shifted a little when he passed by. A few people looked quickly and then turned away, not really sure why. "Look at that," Min-ji went on, dropping her voice, but not the attitude. "He doesn't talk to anyone, doesn't check his phone, doesn't laugh, doesn't complain about life. That is not normal for a college student. He's either a psychopath or extremely focused, and I don't like either option." Soo-yeon tried not to laugh. "You're watching too many crime shows," she said. "Just because he's quiet doesn't mean he's dangerous." Min-ji raised an eyebrow. "Uh-huh. And it's not because he's cute that you're defending him, right?" Soo-yeon's silence said more than any answer. Minji's smile turned instantly mischievous. "Knew it," she muttered. "So if there's someone mysterious, a bit weird, with 'don't come near me, I'm dangerous' energy, you're gonna look, it's automatic." "It's not like that," protested Soo-yeon, tightening her grip on her backpack strap. I don't know, he looked sad." Minji turned toward the door just in time to see Jun disappear down the hallway. "Sad, huh?" she repeated. "Sad is the person who gets involved and then ends up crying, and that person's name starts with Soo and ends with Yeon." Soo-yeon gave her a light shove on the shoulder. "Stop," she said, but couldn't help smiling. The two of them left the classroom and stepped into the crowded corridor. People everywhere, noise, hurried footsteps. Minji, of course, kept up her investigation. "So, did you actually talk to him?" she asked. "Just a little. He helped me when I dropped everything. He said sorry, I thanked him. I asked if he was cold because his hand was freezing, and he said he doesn't really feel cold." Minji stopped walking. "What do you mean, doesn't really feel cold?" she demanded. "Who answers like that, all dry? You ask, 'Are you cold?' The person says a little. No, yes, not 'I don't really feel cold.' That's the line of someone who has a pact with something." Soo-yeon laughed out loud. "You're impossible." "No, I'm realistic," Minji insisted, starting to walk again. "Listen to me. There's something off about that guy. And I'm not just talking about the sad model face." They went down the stairs toward the courtyard. Down there, between one group and another, Soo-yeon saw a familiar figure, even from behind. Dark coat, straight posture, standing alone. Jun was leaning against a pillar, looking at his phone, or pretending to. Every now and then, he lifted his gaze toward some distant point, like he was listening to sounds no one else could hear. Without noticing, Soo-yeon slowed down. Minji noticed instantly. "No," she declared. "If you're thinking about going over there to talk to him, I will tackle you right here." "I'm not going to talk to him," she lied, with the least convincing face in the world. "Then why did you stop walking?" Silence. The truth is, she couldn't explain it. There was something about that boy that pulled her attention like a magnet, but it wasn't just his looks. It was like he was carrying a very heavy story on his back. And for some strange reason, a part of her wanted to know what that story was. "Did he look at you in some weird way?" Minji asked, already suspicious. "I can't explain it," Soo-yeon replied. "It's not invasive. It just feels like he sees more than he should." Minji crossed her arms. "Great, an emotional vampire." Soo-yeon laughed again, but a part of her stayed stuck on the word vampire longer than it should have. It didn't make sense, of course. It was just a joke. But when she remembered his cold hand, pale skin, the way he stood there so still, too still, her brain started connecting things she herself thought were over the top. "Now it's your turn. Are you more like Soo-yeon, letting curiosity speak louder even when something feels wrong? Or more like Minji, turning on all the alarms and starting to investigate and doubt everything?" The rest of the day dragged by in that slow way it does when you slept badly and still had to face early classes. Soo-yeon went back home in the late afternoon with her head full. Exam, assignment, the professor's scolding, and of course, the weird, cold-handed guy who now had a name and a permanent place in her mind. The apartment where she lived wasn't big, but it was quiet in the way she liked. She kicked off her sneakers, dropped her backpack on the bedroom floor, lay down on the bed, and stared at the ceiling for a few seconds. The image of him crouched on the floor, handing her the papers, kept replaying over and over. "Jun Lee," she whispered, testing how the name sounded. She grabbed her phone, opened it without thinking too much, and typed his name into the search bar. Several different Juns showed up, photos of random people, profiles full of selfies, but none that were clearly him. Empty profile, almost invisible on social media. The more she searched, the more it felt like he didn't really exist outside that classroom. Who even lives nowadays without a decent profile? She grumbled. She put the phone away, got up and went to the kitchen. She opened the fridge, stared at an almost empty carton of milk, a jar of kimchi, and some leftover rice from the day before. Nothing appealing. She sighed, grabbed the rice, improvised something, and ate in silence at the table. Outside, the sky had gone completely dark. The window looked out over a not very busy street, but with a bit of traffic still going by. The street lamp on the sidewalk flickered every now and then, like it was just as tired as she was. After eating, Soo-yeon decided to stop by the corner store. She was out of coffee, out of snacks, out of anything that might help her survive the next week. She put on a light jacket, shoved her phone into her pocket, grabbed her wallet, and went down the stairs. Downstairs, the night air was a bit colder. There weren't many people on the street, just a neighbor or two walking past, someone walking their dog, a car parking. She put on her earphones, hit play on some random playlist, and started walking. As she walked, pieces of the day came back in quick flashes. The embarrassment in class, his cold hand, that intense look, Minji's comments. She even laughed to herself, remembering her friend calling him an emotional vampire. That's when she felt that weird sensation. You know when you're walking and suddenly it feels like someone is staring at you, even though you don't see anyone? The back of your neck gets heavy, your body tenses a bit, but you can't explain why. She took one earphone out just to check that it wasn't all in her head. The street sounded normal. A car passing by, a louder motorbike in the distance, a group of teenagers laughing on the other side of the road. Nothing special. But the uneasiness stayed there, stuck in her chest. She turned the corner that led to the little convenience store. The street there was emptier, with a couple of closed shops, metal shutters down, and an alley between two buildings. The street lamp was a bit dim. Nothing she hadn't walked past 1,000 times. Even so, her pace slowed down without her really deciding to. The music was still playing, but she wasn't paying attention anymore. The sound that mattered now was another one, a barely audible scraping noise on the ground, coming from behind her. It could have been just someone in a hurry. Could have. But her body had already decided it didn't want to find out. She walked faster. The sound sped up too. "Relax, Soo-yeon. It's just paranoia," she told herself. But just in case, she switched her bag to the other side and held her phone in her hand. The shop was only a few meters away when she clearly heard it. Footsteps, not right on top of her, but close enough to bother her. A steady, controlled sound, like the person behind her wasn't in any rush, and yet wasn't falling back either. She glanced sideways at the glass window of a closed store, using the reflection as a mirror. She saw a taller shadow a bit behind her, dark hood up, head slightly lowered. She couldn't see details, but she could see it wasn't just someone casually passing by. Her heart sped up. Without thinking twice, she almost threw herself into the shop, pushing the glass door harder than she meant to. The little bell above the door rang loudly, announcing her arrival. The cold white light, the smell of cleaning products, and the neatly stacked shelves had an instant effect. It felt like another world. Safe, bright, noisy. "Good evening," the clerk said without looking up from his phone. "Good evening," she answered, trying to sound normal. She grabbed a small basket and pushed it down a random aisle just so she could breathe and think. While pretending to look at the shelves, she took a discreet peek at the door. The shadow hadn't come in, but it also hadn't walked past the window like someone who would just keep going. She pretended to pick out cookies, coffee, random things. She walked slowly through the aisles, checking the reflections in the convex mirrors on the ceiling as discreetly as she could. The feeling of being watched stayed there, clinging to her skin. When she finally went to the checkout, she decided not to look outside. She paid, said thanks, grabbed the bag. Her hand was shaking a little. The clerk noticed. "Everything okay?" he asked. "Yeah, just tired," she lied. She took a deep breath, tightened her grip on the bag in one hand and her phone in the other, and stared at the door. She couldn't stay there forever. She pushed the glass open slowly and stepped out. Outside, the street looked even emptier than before. The street lamp flickered again. The air felt a bit colder. The hooded shadow was no longer where it had been. On one hand, that was a good sign. On the other, it made everything feel even stranger. Okay, Just walk straight home, she told herself. It's 5 minutes. You've walked this way your whole life. She started walking, this time without music, ears fully alert. Every step sounded too loud in her head. Her eyes moved from the sidewalk to the alleyways, from the building windows to the parked cars. Everything looked normal, way too normal. Then a sharp noise came from behind a parked car, like something had dropped on the ground and then been dragged. She froze for half a second. Instinct told her not to look. Curiosity told her to look right now. Before she could decide, a calm voice spoke from the opposite side of the street. You should look straight ahead when you're scared. It's harder for someone to catch you off guard that way. She turned immediately. Jun Lee was leaning against a wall on the other side of the street, under the flickering light of the street lamp. Dark coat, relaxed posture, a small grocery bag hanging from one hand. He looked like he'd been there for a while, but she was sure she hadn't seen him when she went into the store. "Jun?" she stammered, hardly believing what she was seeing. "What are you doing here?" He shrugged, like it was the most normal thing in the world. "Going home," he said. "And you?" She tightened her grip on the handle of the bag. "Same," she said. "Do you live around here?" He didn't answer right away. He looked over her shoulder, toward where the noise had come from, like he was checking something. His eyes grew more serious for a moment. Then he looked back at her. "Kind of," he said. "But tonight, I just happened to be nearby." The line was way too vague to be pure coincidence, but she was too nervous to question it. "You looked like you were in a hurry," he commented. I thought someone was following me," she admitted, barely believing she was saying it out loud. "It's probably just in my head. I'm tired, It's not just in your head," he cut in, without softening his tone. The chill she felt had nothing to do with the wind. "What do you mean?" she whispered. He looked away again like he was listening to some sound she couldn't hear. "Someone was following you," he said simply, like he was talking about the weather. "But they're not anymore." She swallowed hard. "And how do you know that?" she dared to ask. He hesitated a bit, as if he were picking each word very carefully. "Because I was watching too," he replied, "and some people are not as good at hiding as they think." For a few seconds they both stayed silent, only the wind moving between them. The street lamp flickered once more. The sense of danger hadn't completely gone away, but strangely, his presence there made everything feel a little less bad. "Can I walk you home?" he asked, as if it were the most logical thing to offer. She thought about saying no. She really did. But the memory of the shadow behind the car, the dragging sound, her racing heart, all of that answered for her. "You can," she said, almost in a whisper. They started walking side by side with a bit of distance between them. Every so often, she glanced at him out of the corner of her eye. She wanted to thank him, to ask more, to understand how he knew so much. But something inside her told her that maybe it wasn't a good idea to learn everything all at once. "And you? If you were in Soo-yeon's place, would you let a mysterious guy you barely know walk you home after something weird like that? Or would you rather go alone, even if you were scared, just to avoid getting involved?" They walked in silence for a few meters, only the sound of their footsteps and the wind filling the space between them. Soo-yeon tried to think of something smart to say, but everything that came to mind felt too silly for that moment. "Thank you," she blurted out of nowhere, "for, I don't know, showing up." Jun tilted his head slightly as if he didn't fully understand. "I didn't do anything," he replied. "I was just here. You were here in the same place as me, at the same time, on the same street, and you saw the same person following me," she shot back with a nervous smile. "That's not nothing." He gave a half smile, almost imperceptible, the kind of expression that disappears quickly if you blink. "You should pay more attention on your way home," he commented. "There won't always be someone by accident nearby." "Yeah, I know," she murmured. But tonight there was. They turned the last corner before her building. Apartment windows were lit here and there, some with TVs on, others with people having dinner, arguing, living the normal life she had believed she had up until then. Suddenly, that whole routine felt way too fragile. "Do you live here?" he asked, stopping a few steps before the building entrance. She nodded toward it. "3rd floor," she said. No elevator, so I don't recommend it if you're lazy. He looked at the facade for a few seconds, as if evaluating something. Then he looked back at her. "Third floor, window facing the side street," he said, without thinking. "The one that stays lit until late." She frowned. "How do you know which one is my window?" she asked, laughing lightly, but with a genuine discomfort behind the joke. "Have you been stalking the whole building, or is that some kind of special talent?" Jun took a moment to answer. For an instant, the silence between them grew heavy. "You always study until late," he said at last. "You can see it from the street. I'm not the only one who notices things like that." A shiver ran up the back of her neck. The words were simple, but the way he said it sounded like someone who had watched more than he should have. "So that means I should start closing my curtains?" She tried to joke. "If it makes you feel safer, maybe you should," he answered, serious. She swallowed, trying to decide whether that was advice, a warning, or both. Part of her felt scared. Another part, as senseless as it was, felt protected. "Well," she said, adjusting the bag in her hand, "thanks again for walking with me." "No need to thank me," he replied. "Just stick to busier streets on your way home, at least at night." "I'll try." She took a step back toward the building entrance. She stayed there for a second, not sure if she should say goodbye with a wave, a smile, or a "see you tomorrow." "Jun!" she called, before opening the gate. He lifted his gaze. "Have you ever had that feeling that something bad is coming, but you don't know exactly what it is?" she asked, half laughing at herself. "Because today the whole day has felt like that." For a moment, his expression changed. It wasn't fear. It was something between recognition and exhaustion, like he'd heard that sentence many times before, in different lives. "Yes," he answered simply. "More times than I'd like." "And what do you do when you feel that?" she wanted to know. He thought for a second, as if flipping through too many memories. "I try not to get close to people who might get hurt because of me," he said. "But I'm not very good at that." Before she could answer, a noise came from the end of the street. Something metallic clattering, like a trash can lid being knocked over. Soo-yeon turned instinctively. There was no one visible, just the shadow of an alley darker than the rest. When she looked back to where Jun had been standing, he was gone. No car door slamming, no hurried footsteps moving away, no gate closing. Nothing. It was as if he had simply melted into the night. The only proof he'd been there at all was the echo of his voice in her head. "You should pay more attention on your way home." She entered the building slowly, still trying to understand how someone could disappear that fast. Out on the street, near that same alley, a figure stood in the shadows, silently watching the building. Its eyes gleamed faintly in the dark, as if the reflection of the few streetlights revealed more than it should. It wasn't Jun. And it didn't look like someone who wanted to protect anyone. Upstairs on the third floor, Soo-yeon dropped the bag onto the table and went straight to the window. She stayed there for a few seconds, staring at the street, searching without admitting she was searching. No sign of him. She pressed her forehead against the cold glass and sighed. "Seoul feels weird tonight," she murmured. And somewhere in the city, on a street as dark as the alley from the night before, Jun Lee was walking alone again, hands in his pockets and heavy thoughts in his head. He could smell something in the air. It wasn't just blood, it was trouble. And this time, it wasn't just about him. "I promised I wouldn't get close to humans again," he thought. "And in 2 days I've already broken 2 promises." Have you ever felt like someone walked into your life at exactly the right time and the wrong time all at once? Watch the continuation of the series in the next episode. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and leave a comment.